Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Web3 for Digital Marketers podcast. I'm here with Ipshita Kumar, the VP of Brand Innovation from Hype. And great. Thanks for joining the podcast, Ipshita. We've got a bunch of stuff to cover around Web3, brands, NFTs, all of that stuff. Before we do, I just gave you a title, but great if you could just give us a little bit more background on what you do, what you're all about. That'd be great.
For sure. It's been such a pleasure having off screen chats with you and to finally be live on this podcast. I come from a South Asian background, so my roots are from New Delhi, India, studied hospitality and tourism in my pre-tech years, or let's just say like post, just like out of high school years, because experience management is just something that would just come very naturally, and I really wanted to pursue that as a career. Over time, I saw that hospitality as an industry was simply not innovating in tech as fast as other aspects of my life were. So I was using Uber to order a car in a second, and I was using Deliveroo and Glovo to order food. So really, or like really sophisticated technology in my everyday social life, which was simply not translating into professional. So that also kind of started my journey moving towards tech. And today, like you said, I'm VP of Brand Innovations at Hype, which is one of the largest and the oldest, actually, crypto marketing agency in the world. We've been around for the last 5 years, 180 people strong, completely remote. Most people haven't even met each other. So we've really just gone through, I think, at least more than 2 to 3 different bear and bull markets. So what's really happening right now doesn't phase us. And as Jake, founder of Hype, says, he started Hype because really developers sucked at marketing. If you even dated back to 5 years ago, so it was about how do I bring together some awesome marketing experts and help them bring their product to the mainstream consumer adoption. So I joined Hype about a year ago as their head of NFTs. This was also when NFTs were becoming a little bit popular, to pretty much understand what kind of service offering can we provide our customers, and then what would that next wave of consumer experience look like. And as I was developing the department within Hype, we saw, I think, every second week a new brand entering. This is around last year, January, until the end of the year. So my role essentially kind of transformed into brand innovation. So today I manage a team of 30 people. So for all the way from NFTs, metaverse, gaming, research, events, everything kind of falls under the scope of my team. And we really help heritage as well as the emerging brands in this space to understand what is their Web3 presence going to look like? How do I future-proof my products and services? How do I build that Web3 community? And just kind of be their holding hand. And it doesn't matter if we're hosting a massive out-of-home activation or just helping them in strategic advisory. We essentially kind of take care of the entire circle for them.
Awesome. Great introduction. Loads to unpack. And, like 5 years is such a long time in this space, right? In fact, 12 months is a long time, even 3 months. And, before we get into the specifics, and you touched on a lot there, for our audience, and our audience really is, those marketing leaders who are Web 2 people learning about Web 3. And we're hearing the word Web 3 now, a little bit too much, almost a bit buzzy. And I'd love it to, in your words, what is Web3? What does it encompass from a marketing person's point of view? What should they be thinking about when they hear this Web3 term? What does it mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think in the simplest way to put it, it would be the next iteration of the internet, where you're using blockchain technology to perform transactions on chain. On chain in this case would be the blockchain. There is also a baseline understanding that any and every physical and digital asset will now have proof of ownership because they will all be recorded on chain. And then you're essentially also turning your audience that you would have on social media or your email marketing list into a community, because community is also an epicenter of every single Web3 project. This is also because we're seeing a consumer mentality shift, right? They want to be participating a bit more in the everyday brand activations instead of just going ahead and pressing a double heart
Yeah.
or making a comment. They want to be more involved in the everyday decisions that you want to make as a brand. And then essentially, you're also catering to a completely different target audience, if not an extension of the previous generation. So really anything after your younger millennials who are digital natives, you're targeting them because as they move into their adulthood, they're spending more and more time online. So you're also thinking, what is that next step can I take as an extension to my products and services? So I'd say it's overall is simply just the next iteration of the internet, just the way you were looking at what do I do from an offline to an e-commerce strategy. Now you're looking at what do I do as an on-chain strategy. It's a big jump, but if you just look at the last 12 months with all the different products that have mushroomed to make that adoption easier and more seamless, I just don't see why in the next 5 years it becomes mainstream adopted by most brands.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean the word NFT is an interesting word. It's an interesting place. You're seeing it used less and less, and Web3 being used in place of it. But if we go back to last year and the kind of 18 months before, to anyone on the street who's heard the word NFT, they think about digital art, and that's kind of almost the end of it, unless they understand beyond that. But in terms of what you've seen and what you are seeing with brands leveraging NFT technology, have you got some good examples? Can you give us some kind of insights into how you're seeing brands leverage this technology beyond just the digital art, which is a big part of it, but there's a lot more to it than that, right?
The way I understood, or no, let me take that back. The way I explained it to my mom what NFTs are, because she's like, "So you're head of NFTs. What do you really do? What does this mean?" And it's a very obvious question, right? So the way I explained to her is that just NFTs really they're nothing except just code. They're a digital ledger, and this is the back end side of things. Is that you're just essentially recording this transaction on a blockchain, and you're putting it on a digital ledger. That's your NFT. But then there's always a front facing. The front facing can be beautiful artwork, can be a membership card, which again also has a beautiful artwork. It can be music. It could be anything that you want to digitize and you want to make sure that specific item lives on the blockchain is can be called as an NFT. So it's really a generic term than a trend-setting term. So over time, we've also seen different use cases evolve for NFTs. So we went from PFPs to PFPs that give you specific access, and then you have membership cards, your loyalty program. So really, there are very different types of use cases with this specific string of technology, and different brands based on who they are as a personality, as a brand personality, are tapping into the different use cases. So like you have the Starbucks loyalty program, then you have Nike really innovating in the digital fashion space. Overall, you just see the different use cases that have kind of come up. It's also a great way for brands to think about to future-proof their products and services, because as you move from 2021 2022, different NFT activations, you're going to see that every brand is coming up with more frictionless and more seamless ways of onboarding their community onto Web3. So yeah, and I also kind of forgot the initial question, so I realized I wandered off.
That's right. No, I mean that you were bang on. We're just talking about how brands are leveraging NFTs. So, and
Yeah.
and actually, I mean, if we just pick into an example there, because I think it's a good segue for some other questions I want to ask. You mentioned Starbucks, which, Starbucks is, as I understand right now, are kind of in beta with their NFT loyalty program, which is essentially it's for their employees actually as well as their consumers, but it'll allow me or you to get a digital collectible that can be worth something at Starbucks, whether it's a discount on a coffee or whether it's something much bigger, more an experience. So there, yeah, I mean, within there is a good example. I suppose the question beyond that is, are you seeing, how far do you think we are from mass adoption of those types of loyalty programs with Web3, with NFT technology? are we going to see a kind of up curve over the next 6 to 12 months? Is it a 5-year journey? What do you believe, with someone who works with, brands in brand innovation? What are you seeing in terms of this kind of NFT loyalty piece and where it might be heading?
We definitely see this year specifically, like there's a certain degree of fatigue with the word NFT. So the
Mm.
first thing we're seeing is, let's chuck the word NFTs and let's find a way to replace it with something that our community would understand, our community would actually come ahead and support. Because like I said, in the end, it's an underlying technology that allows you to, again, innovate, connect better with your community, or even just build a community from scratch that maybe you just never had before. That's like the gradual transition. Sorry, but if you think about the route to buying an NFT 12 to 15 months ago, was you sign up at a crypto exchange, you make sure you've transferred fiat from your bank account to the exchange, then you're trading the crypto, and then you're setting up a wallet, and then you're transferring the money into your wallet. So really that process was never made for the common man.
Yeah.
My mother would never do it. If I wasn't working in crypto, I wouldn't do it. Even my cousin wouldn't, who's a 16-year-old and doesn't understand crypto. So really, as we move forward, you're seeing brands adopt this technology, but in a way that they do not want to make their community feel that they are buying an NFT. So I think a great example would be just this weekend. There was a festival called Lollapalooza in India.
Oh,
Um,
it happened in India, did it? Yeah, I
yeah,
know the festival, but yeah. Anyway, I won't go off topic on
perfect.
it, but yeah,
There you
interesting.
go.
Perry Farrell.
And is the main sponsor. So at Lollapalooza, you have this massive stage section, which is basically where you go, you scan your ticket, and you're able to mint your first PFP or your first festival head. So what this really does is, for all the people in the last 24 months, they've been hearing the word NFT and they've been scared because maybe it's cost me $2 million, or I don't really own a crypto wallet. It's for any and every Lollapalooza ticket holder that can go scan the QR code. With the help of Polynation's AI and Lemonade as a tech provider, they're essentially kind of able to go, click a picture, creates a really cool avatar, and you can mint it. And that experience itself is so personal,
Yeah.
because it has the branding of Budweiser, and this is something I'll always remember. And this almost takes me back to, so I'm a big festival goer. When I was living in Spain, this was very, very common to go every weekend to the brunch in the park, or you're going to digital festival, and you'd have these reusable plastic glasses, which would have really beautiful artwork. And every different festival you'd go to, you'd get a different reusable glass. So I remember owning a big stack of glasses at home. And then the same thing with my wristbands. So these are all ways of remembering who you were at that event. It becomes a part of you, an extension of you, but in the physical world. Now, the moment I, as someone who's never owned a PFP, can simply go and mint one at the festival that I've paid a ticket to go to, that's it. For the rest of my life, I'll always remember that this is where I minted my first PFP. So the meaning of an NFT for that user has completely changed, and you've just integrated into their entire experience seamlessly without making them subjected to a marketing campaign that you discover on Instagram, and then you have to download a wallet. It's just, you're
Mm.
really seeing brands go a little bit away from the traditional way, and finding ways of integrating into your everyday life. So that's a big change that we're going to see this year, is how can we use this technology to integrate into our existing roadmap of our brand, and not even make our community feel that they are buying an NFT, for that matter of fact.
Makes a lot of sense. I think the key thing, listening to you speak there is, if I'm a festival goer, I don't really need to understand anything around the word NFT, around the word crypto wallet. All I need to understand is that, I'm at a festival, I'm having a real experience. I'm also having a digital experience at the same time. And, there's an integration between those two things. There's stuff that happens, there's collectibles. And yeah, I think we've got a problem in this industry of kind of wanting to get away from the language and the acronyms a bit, because it's about the end consumer experience around this technology without needing to understand what an NFT is, or how blockchain works, or how a crypto wallet has anything to do with it. So, yeah.
I mean, think about all the different web pages you interact with. Or look at Instagram. I don't need to know the code behind Reels. I just need to know how to upload a reel and make it go viral. That's all as a
Yeah.
consumer I'm caring about. But I don't care about what is the infrastructure behind forming a reel from the code perspective. So really, NFTs are seeing that shift at this point, and which is awesome because for the longest time, people who are working in this space, they've been trying to advocate for the same thing. Like NFTs, they're simply a line of code. They're nothing more. With just something very beautiful front facing. But yeah, I agree with you.
Makes a lot of sense. Community. I want to talk about community a bit. A couple of questions. And I think, firstly, I mean, we're seeing, if we look over the last 18 months, we've seen major brands do NFT launches successfully. A
Yeah.
number of them, big clothing brands, sports brands, probably, main ones we see in the media. And there's a PR element to that. There's wanting to be seen as, the brand out there that's doing it first. But, are these brands then leveraging and creating communities around that effectively right now? Or is it all about that first drop? Are there gaps? Because for me, I mean, I really see the long-term opportunity is how you leverage and how you create beyond that initial launch. Are you seeing success yet? Is there more to be done in terms of the community element to, engaging around NFT drops around the Web3 space?
So if you look at community, it is definitely the single tool that will make or break your journey as a brand in Web3. And more and more brands are realizing that as they move forward. A lot of them have received backlash because of all the different news that you see floating around everywhere. So it's about brands understanding either they already have a Web3 community and they want to engage this community, and the way to do it is by giving, by offering, and then you're not just in a state of, let's say, like value extraction. And you can do this either by building your own community from scratch or partnering with existing communities. I really like this activation that Hennessy did with Friends with Benefits Cafe 11 in Paris. So really, what they did is they launched an exclusive Web3 membership where they were offering a pop-up experience approach in different key cities. And they created this curated experience where you could have cognac tasting, a range of culinary and entertainment events, live music, exhibitions, workshops. So as a cognac brand, you're thinking, what can I do outside of just launching a PFP collection? To build my Web3 community. And their approach was, let's go with an existing cultural DAO, work with them to understand what is it that Friends with Benefits community likes, what is their persona like, and let's create a service offering, not just for them, but the lookalike profiles of FWB, because it's also not restricted only to FWB. So community, I'd say, is a very interesting one because those who get it, they get it, and those who don't, they massively fail at innovating in this space.
Yeah, well, I think there's a learning curve around this right now, and I mean it's a linked question. And actually, I wanted to ask you about wallet marketing, and I'm not going to ask yet, but I mention it now because you might end up answering it as part of the same answer. And this, I think, came from our pre-chats before the podcast. I think this may be even your words, this question. But if I'm a marketing manager, Web2, I'm trying to learn about, NFTs, blockchain, Web3. What is the difference for me between, hey, we've got a million on people on Instagram following our brand, and hey, we've got a million wallets, a million wallets out there with customers we've interacted with. That's why I mentioned wallet marketing, because I know it's maybe the same type of question. But yeah, what is the difference? What are the things I should be thinking about in terms of my future interaction with those customers, the value of those followers versus wallets and stuff? Because I think that for me is a real valid question and point in terms of the thinking of anyone going from kind of Web 2, Web 2.5 to this Web 3 space as a marketing leader.
Absolutely. And I'd say, so historically, communities are always born around shared interests, right? And as a brand, you develop products to cater to those who are the closest community in your mind. So when you are working with your community in the Web 2 approach, so you have platforms like IG, TikTok, Snapchat. I can take the next 60 seconds name dropping a bunch more. Um, you're essentially working with borrowed community. They're
Yeah.
not really your community per se. They're the community of the platform, but then you've been able to create a brand that allows you to attract certain community members to follow your profile. What you want to be doing as a brand immediately is, once you've established your presence, you want to be looking at, how can I convert the borrowed audience into my own audience. Web3 allows you to natively do that. So really, if you look at all the brands that are born on Web3, so I would say Doodles is a great example, or Bored Ape, Yacht Club. So these are communities that were born on chain. They from the beginning were able to own, quote unquote, their community because they have direct access to them. Whereas communities slash brands that are born on online, they, or like on Instagram, they're essentially having to think about, all right, I have 1 million followers. I am already spending a bunch of ad dollars a month to reach my own community. But then now it's about, how can I convert them into my own offline community, that I do not have to depend on an external platform to constantly activate them. So that's where also wallet marketing comes in, because once you've done your, let's say, even 1 or 2 activations in Web3, you've been able to gather 100, 200, few thousand members, or a few thousand wallet addresses. It's also about looking at those wallets, open wallets, public wallets, and seeing, what does this consumer profile look like? Because in the end, if I'm a beer brand, the only thing I care about is how to sell more beer.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I can sell it at a shop, online, on chain, in a game. It doesn't matter. My end KPI as a marketing manager, I want to sell more products. It's just that we have many tools to make that happen today. So as an alcohol brand, or as a clothing or apparel brand, when I have 2,000 wallet addresses, open public wallet addresses, how can I train my staff, or how can I find the right talent in the market that can go ahead, look into their wallets, because they're open, they do not have any personal details attached, but maybe they, each of them, have a collection of 10 to 15 different NFTs. Can I look at the different NFTs this wallet ID owns, and start thinking about, what is that persona this person would have, and how do I translate this person into buying more of my product? So it's also something I keep telling my team, that, okay, if I give you my wallet address today, can you close your eyes and tell me who I am outside of work by just looking at my NFTs? And that should be becoming more and more of a trend, because as we move away from the experimentation, and as this becomes a norm, we're going to want to look at tangible ways to drive our KPIs and goals. And the only way you can do this is by becoming a bit more data driven. And the good thing about Web3 is, since data is yours, and the community is yours, you can really own that bit. So we're definitely going to see wallet marketing side kind of booming. And once you understand those personas, you'll then have, again, different platforms and tools that can help you engage a specific segment of the target audience.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I read your article on wallet marketing, and I've come from a CRM background, before this some time ago, but I see that as a massive play. As this, Salesforce, I think, is launching a product later in the year, but once this starts to kind of integrate internally into CRM systems, and that's when you'll get a lot more mainstream adoption, because the brand will be pushing more to be able to market in that way from an internal perspective and manage the data side of this business. So it's going to be an interesting 12, 24 months, I think. So
Definitely. And in terms of also brands, because you said something about Salesforce and how they're building a CRM, that's a great example, because when you look at brands like Nike, you look at brands like Gucci, or let's say Prada, then you have Salesforce, Disney, Starbucks. So these are different types of brands. And what I like about them is, not all of them went down the NFT route, saying, we're just going to go ahead and launch the NFT collection. these are some of the most respected brands in the world. They took a step back. They thought, okay, if I'm Salesforce, CRM has been my bread and butter for the last X amount of years. What can I do today to kind of go on chain? I do not need to launch an NFT, but I do need to maybe build the next iteration of CRM and be the leader today. And then similarly with other companies or brands that are innovating in this space, which is what I like about some of these brands and how they're working in Web3.
Indeed. Brands innovating in this space, you mentioned a few there. Something that seems very apparent. I mean, you said a number of 600, I think, earlier. You've seen there's been 600 roughly NFT drops. It seems to me that we're hearing all the big names, the Fortune 500. But in terms of what you're seeing more broadly, and actually, I suppose from our point of view as a business, the audience we're speaking to, which I would say is that tier down. Are you seeing activity? Are you seeing NFT campaigns, Web3 experimentation happening with the brands that kind of come under the major tier brands? And even if not, what should those brand managers be thinking about? Is it time to experiment? Is now a good time? Should they be jumping in and learning a bit?
So I'd like to take maybe 5 steps back to just look at how brands are born. And a lot of times this becomes a confusing one. I'd say offline, online, and then on chain. So a brand can be really born in any of the categories. You can be born offline as a brick and mortar solution, and then if you were a brand in the 90s, you're thinking, okay, now that the internet boom has happened, how do I go develop my e-commerce strategy? A brand can be born online, so really your Instagram brands, or so kind of think of like Kylie Jenner's makeup brand, born on Instagram, but then from time to time they want to do a pop-up in the offline space because they also want to be present offline. And then you have on-chain brands like Doodles we mentioned, or Bored Ape, and then they're also looking at what can we do in terms of online, so maybe having our own e-commerce strategy, and then also in the offline activation, can we go to NFT NYC and do something really cool for our members? So brands can be really born in any of these categories, but once they find their product market fit, they do want to transcend to the other category to make sure that they're touching all three of these touch points, and then also to every single type of target audience. So brands in general, they can be falling anywhere here. Um, right now, just because the technical integration and the heavy lifting on the financial resources side is why we're seeing a lot of bigger brands take this risk. And also these bigger brands, or let's say heritage brands, they've been in the forefront of digital innovation and dictating the trend for the last 20, 30 years. If you look at the partnership between Venly and Shopify, which is Venly becomes the wallet of default for anyone, any of the Shopify merchants wanting to launch their NFTs. This will really help with that mass adoption, because for sure you cannot have a Shopify merchant, or let's say an average Shopify merchant, spending $500,000 on a custom game development. So are we there yet? No, but are we on that path? Absolutely. And it will take place over the next 4 to 5 years. I was surprised that last year for Metaverse Fashion Week, there was this brand called Papa Don't Preach by Shubika. It's a very, very local brand of wedding wear in India, out of Mumbai. And they had their digitized pieces do a catwalk in Decentraland. So I was really shocked because I did not expect a small brand to, and when I say small, I don't mean, I essentially mean not the heritage brands, to be thinking in the innovative space, and to be a part of something so tech forward. So the interest is there, the curiosity is there, the know-how isn't there. Or the resources aren't there. And right now, a lot of the layer ones, layer twos, they're building products, or they're partnering with different ecosystems to be able to build those products to make that transition easier for small to medium businesses. So Instagram integrating NFTs into their marketplace as well allows small to medium businesses to start innovating, listing their digital products as well. So it's going to happen, and I can't wait for that, because what NFTs would mean in the next 12 months would be so different from what we're having the conversation about today. They'll never change the fact that they're still a piece of line of code,
Yeah.
but how it's going to be perceived, the way it's going to be integrated in our lives, the use cases are going to evolve drastically. One thing, for example, I'd love to see as a use case at some point is we're doing so much for the final consumer, but how can we take the same technology of ownership or like membership with utilities and bring it to the staff? So if we're looking at hospitality, I have a great friend, Donald Compare. He works from he comes from a very legit hospitality background as well. We were discussing the other day, we're doing so much for the final consumer, but what if hotels and restaurants were to look at the same technology and apply it as an employee retention program? And this will become very normal. That is, okay, if you've been working in the company for X amount of months or years, you get you get an X NFT, which allows you to have different utilities which are recorded on chain, so there isn't also much of red tapeism. So would also love to see how this technology can kick back into the lives of the folks that are driving that experience for the final consumers as well.
Cool. A lot to happen. A lot to. It's going to be an interesting few years in this space. Hey, so I didn't have any other questions. If there's anything I didn't ask that you'd like to share, then yeah, please let me know. Otherwise, it'd be great also to share your details for our audience where they can learn more about yourself and what you do and get in touch. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think we covered a lot. There's also a lot to digest. I really hope that we steered away from the jargon, because that's one of the things that scares a lot of people when they're also listening to audio content or video content. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, anyone can contact me on Ipshita, so my first name at hype.partners. And then I'm also available on LinkedIn as Ipshita Kumar. You'll see my purple PFP as a profile picture, so it's very easy to spot. And yeah, looking forward to receiving any interest from anyone.
Cool. Awesome. Well, for anyone watching or listening, I will leave all those details in the speaker notes below. Really appreciate you spending the time to jump on for half an hour and chat about this space. And yeah, let's do it again sometime, because you're right. I mean, it's that there is a lot to cover. I don't think we mentioned too many buzzwords or acronyms, although there are many in this space. So yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciated you jumping on and enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure. And would love to hear this podcast 12 months from now and think, oh, wow, things mean so different these days. So can't wait for that moment. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Awesome. Have a good afternoon.